Welcome to Bookish Mind Podcast, Season 4, Episode 16. This is our final supplementary deep dive on Atomic Habits by James Clear. Today, we're really digging into how to stay consistent, day in and day out. We'll be looking at strategies like habit tracking, visual cues, and that really important never miss twice idea. Our mission here is to unpack those practical, actionable bits from Clear's work that help you build momentum and, crucially, keep it going, even when life, gets in the way. We'll look at how simple visual things can give you that instant feeling of satisfaction, the big impact of actually tracking your habits, and maybe most importantly, how to bounce back fast when you inevitably fall off the wagon.
Right, and what's so effective about these, I think, is how they shift our whole approach. It's not just about abstract goals anymore. They turn them into really tangible, repeatable actions. And they do this by tapping into some core psychological principles. It's less about sheer willpower, more about building systems where consistency just sort of happens.
Okay, let's kick things off with a great story. It's from 1993, about this young guy, 23 years old, stockbroker, named Trent Deersmid. He was a rookie working in Abbotsford, Canada, which is, a smaller market. Nobody really expected much. But he made surprisingly fast progress using just a really simple daily habit. He called it the paperclip strategy. Super simple, actually. Every morning, he'd start with 2 jars on his desk. One was full of 120 paper clips, the other one completely empty. And for every single sales call he made, he just moved 1 paperclip from the full jar into the empty one. He just kept doing that until all 120 were moved over. It was just this direct visual measure of his effort for the day.
So the question is, why was that so incredibly effective? I mean, the results speak for themselves. Within just 18 months, Deersmid was bringing in, get this, $5 million to the firm. By the time he was 24, he was earning $75,000 a year. That's like $125,000 today. And pretty soon after that, he landed a 6-figure job. The reason the paperclip strategy worked, fundamentally, is because making progress feels good. It's satisfying. These visual measures, they give you clear, undeniable proof of the work you're putting in. It reinforces the behavior right away and adds this little shot of satisfaction to, pretty much any task you're trying to make into a habit.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that this wasn't just some quirky one-off trick Deersmid stumbled upon. It really shows a universal principle at play. You see variations of this everywhere, right? Claire mentions a woman using hairpins for pages she writes, or a guy moving marbles for sets of push-ups he completes. These are just little tricks. They're actually powerful psychological hacks. They make abstract effort concrete and rewarding.
Exactly. And this idea of visual measurement, it goes way beyond just physical objects like paper clips or marbles. You see it in countless forms of tracking we run to every day. Think about food journals, workout logs, those loyalty punch cards you get at coffee shops, even software download progress bars, or page numbers in a book. The core idea is always the same. Make the progress tangible. Turn that invisible effort into something you can actually see, count, and feel. And for building our own habits, probably the most accessible tool for doing this is a good old habit tracker.
Okay, so if visual feedback is that powerful, that compelling,
Yeah.
for those of us trying to lock in new habits, what's the most sort of practical tool, the one that really lets us leverage this day to day?
Well, for most people, I'd say that's definitely a habit tracker. It sounds almost too simple, really. Often it's just a calendar where you literally cross off each day you succeed. Whether it's putting an X on a physical calendar or tapping a button in an app, the power is in making your effort visible. It creates this ongoing record, this chain, this habit streak.
And it's fascinating. This isn't some new digital age invention either. You see this kind of tracking way back. Think about Benjamin Franklin. Starting when he was just 20, he carried this little booklet around with him to track 13 personal virtues. Things like lose no time, be always employed in something useful, and he recorded his progress every single day, meticulously. Fast forward to today, you've got someone like Jerry Seinfeld. He famously uses a habit tracker to keep his joke writing streak going. His goal, as he puts it, is simply never break the chain.
Right.
What's really insightful there is he's not obsessing over whether the joke is brilliant or if he feels inspired. The focus is just on showing up, doing the work, adding another link to that chain, day after day.
Don't break the chain.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful mantra because it forces you to prioritize the act of showing up, the consistency itself. And it worked so well because it taps into several of James Clear's laws of behavior change all at once. It makes the habit obvious, it makes it attractive, and it makes it satisfying. Those are 3 huge pillars for building habits that stick.
So what is it about just, crossing off a day on a calendar? What gives that simple action such power? It seems like it's hitting us on a few different psychological levels.
Precisely. Yeah, there are a few key benefits. First, tracking makes your habit obvious. That visual cue, the X on the calendar, the entry in your log, it acts as an immediate trigger for the next action. It reminds you to do it again, and it keeps you honest, too. Let's face it, we often have a distorted view of our own behavior, right? We think we're doing better than we are. Measurement cuts through that, like Dersmid glancing at his paper clips, instant, honest feedback. And research backs this up. Studies consistently show that people who track their progress on goals, whether it's weight loss, quitting smoking, lowering blood pressure, they're significantly more likely to improve. One big study found people keeping daily food logs lost twice as much weight. Just the act of tracking itself seems to spark change.
Okay, so it makes it obvious. What's the second benefit?
Second, habit tracking is attractive, and this is key. The most effective form of motivation we have is actually progress itself. When you get that clear signal that you're moving forward, even just a little bit, it's inherently motivating. It can actually become quite addictive in a good way. Each small win, each X marked, each paperclip moved, it fuels your desire to keep the streak going.
That seems especially powerful on bad days.
Yeah.
Right, when maybe you don't feel like you made much progress.
Exactly. Tracking provides that visual proof of your hard work, even when your feelings might tell you otherwise. It's a reminder of how far you've come. And that empty square for today, that can be surprisingly motivating too. You don't want to be the one to break that beautiful chain you've built. And thirdly, maybe most importantly, habit tracking is satisfying. This might be the most critical benefit of the lot. Tracking can become its own reward. It just feels good to cross an item off your list, to fill in that workout log, to mark that X. There's an inherent satisfaction in seeing the results accumulate, watching your investment portfolio grow, or your manuscript length increase. If it feels good, you're much more likely to stick with it.
It also seems like it shifts your focus in a helpful way. You're less fixated on just the end result, like, say, getting six-pack abs, and more focused on the process, on keeping the streak alive, on becoming the type of person who consistently shows up, who doesn't miss workouts. That identity piece feels really powerful.
That's a great point, yes. So, just to recap, habit tracking, number one, creates that visual cue that prompts action. Number two, it's motivating because you actually see your progress unfolding. And number three, it feels genuinely satisfying to record your success. Plus, as you said, it provides that tangible proof that you're casting votes for the kind of person you want to become, and that delivers this immediate, intrinsic sense of gratification.
Okay, that all sounds incredibly convincing. Makes perfect sense. But I can almost hear some listeners thinking, okay, if it's that simple and effective, why isn't everyone doing it perfectly?
I mean, I know for myself, I've started countless food diaries. Usually they last about, half a day, maybe a full day if I'm lucky. So if tracking is so great, what's the big hurdle? Why do people resist it or fall off? That's a really common experience and a great question. The main reason people resist tracking or give up on it is because it often feels like a chore, like a burden. You're essentially trying to build one habit, say eating healthier, but now you've added a second habit on top of it, the habit of tracking, and that can feel like too much. Counting calories feels like a hassle for many. Recording every single sales call seems tedious after a while. You hear it all the time. Oh, I wish I used my journal more consistently. Or, yeah, I tracked my workouts for a week, then just stopped. I've done it myself with food logs. Track one meal, then forget the rest of the day.
Right, that sounds very familiar. So if that friction is a common problem, what can we actually do? How can we make tracking easier, more sustainable, something that fits into real life?
Well, Clear suggests three main strategies to make it easier. First, automate measurement whenever you possibly can. You might actually be tracking more than you realize already. Your credit card statements, for instance, show how often you eat out. Your Fitbit or smartwatch logs steps and sleep. Your calendar tracks travel or appointments. Instead of trying to manually log everything daily, you could simply set aside time, say weekly or monthly, to review the data that's already being collected for you.
Okay, automate where possible. What else?
Second, limit manual tracking to only your most important habits. Don't try to track everything under the sun. It's far, far better to consistently track one, maybe two, really crucial habits than it is to sporadically try and track 10 different things. Focus your tracking energy where it delivers the biggest bang for your buck.
That makes sense. Quality over quantity. And the third strategy?
The third strategy is to record each measurement immediately after the habit occurs. Don't wait until the end of the day to try and remember everything. The completion of the habit itself should be the cue to track it. This beautifully combines habit stacking, which we've talked about before, with the act of tracking. The formula is simple. After I carrot habit, I will track my habit.
Okay, like stacking it right on top.
Exactly. So, for example, After I hang up the phone from a sales call, I will move one paper click over. Or, after I finish each set at the gym, I will immediately record it in my workout journal. Or, after I put my plate in the dishwasher, I will quickly jot down what I ate. Make it instantaneous.
Those tactics definitely seem like they'd lower the barrier to entry, make tracking feel less like a separate chore. And I think even if you don't naturally enjoy recording your behavior, doing it for just a few weeks can be incredibly eye-opening. It's always fascinating to see the difference between how you think you spend your time and, well, the actual data.
Absolutely. That said, we have to be realistic. Every single habit streak eventually ends. It just does. No matter how consistent you are, life happens. It will inevitably interrupt your perfect routine. You'll get sick. You'll have to travel unexpectedly. Family obligations will pop up. Perfection just isn't possible. So actually, more important than any single measurement or even how long your current streak is having a good plan for when things inevitably go off track.
Okay, this sounds like where that never miss twice rule comes in.
Precisely. It's a simple rule, but it's incredibly powerful. Never miss twice. If you miss one day, maybe you skip the gym or forget to meditate. The absolute key is to get back on track as quickly as possible, immediately, the very next day. Don't let one slip up, cascade into two, and then three, and then you're back to square one.
So the logic is, one missed day is okay, it happens, but two in a row is where the danger lies.
Exactly that. Missing one workout. It happens. Life gets busy. But don't miss two in a row. Maybe you indulge and eat an entire pizza, fine, but make sure your very next meal is a healthy one. You can't be perfect, we know that now, but you can almost always avoid that second lapse. As soon as one streak ends, you start the next one immediately. Because here's the critical insight. The first mistake rarely ruins you. It's the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows that does the damage. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice. That's the beginning of a new, unwanted habit.
That feels like a really important distinction. It often feels like the first slip-up is the end of the world, but you're saying it's the recovery speed that matters most.
Absolutely. This principle is often what separates people who achieve long-term success from those who don't. Anyone can have a bad day, a bad performance, an off week, but when successful people stumble, they rebound quickly. The fact that a habit was broken temporarily doesn't really matter in the long run if the reclaiming of that habit is fast. It's all about resilience, not about achieving unattainable perfection.
It avoids that all-or-nothing trap too, doesn't it? Where you think, oh, I messed up, so I might as well just give up completely.
Precisely. That all-or-nothing cycle is so destructive. The problem isn't usually the initial slip-up, it's the thinking that follows. Well, if I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't bother doing it at all. That's where people really get derailed. This also connects back to the power of compounding, which we usually associate with finance, but it applies just as much to habits. Think about it like this. Avoiding a big loss is often just as valuable, mathematically, as achieving a big gain. Charlie Munger has that great quote, "The first rule of compounding, never interrupt it unnecessarily." He was talking about money, but it's just as true for the consistent effort that builds habits. Don't let small interruptions turn into major setbacks.
That makes so much sense. And it explains why those quote-unquote bad workouts, the ones where you just show up and go through the motions, are often the most important ones.
Exactly. Those days when you feel sluggish, when you do less than you planned, they're crucial. They maintain the compound gains you've already built. Simply doing something, anything, even just 10 squats, 5 sprints, maybe just 1 push-up, it's huge compared to doing nothing. The goal is, don't put up a 0 for the day.
And it reinforces the identity piece again, right?
Yes. It's not always about the physical benefit during that specific workout. It's about reinforcing your identity. It's about being the type of person who shows up, who doesn't miss workouts, even when you don't feel like it. Showing up on those tough days sends a powerful message to yourself.
Okay, so we talked about making tracking easier and the importance of recovering quickly with never miss twice. But you mentioned pitfalls earlier. What's another danger zone we need to watch out for with tracking?
Well, besides the all-or-nothing thinking, another potential danger, especially when we get really into tracking, is inadvertently measuring the wrong thing entirely.
Measuring the wrong thing. How does that happen? Can you give an example?
Sure. Clear use is a good restaurant example. Imagine a restaurant owner trying to figure out if their chef is any good, so they start tracking daily revenue. Seems logical, right? More revenue must mean better food.
Yeah, that makes sense on the surface.
But think about it. Customers usually pay for their meal even if they didn't really enjoy it. Revenue could be going up simply because of a new marketing campaign, Or maybe prices increased, completely unrelated to the actual quality of the food.
Ah, okay. So revenue isn't necessarily a good proxy for customer satisfaction or food quality.
Exactly. What might be more effective? Maybe tracking how many customers actually finish their entire meal, or tracking the average tip percentage. Those metrics likely tell you a lot more about whether people genuinely enjoyed the experience and the food.
Okay, I see. So we can get fixated on a number that doesn't actually reflect the outcome we care about.
Precisely. And this highlights a really critical pitfall. We can become driven by the number itself, the metric, and completely lose sight of the underlying purpose behind the measurement. This leads us straight to Goodhart's law, which basically states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. The moment we start optimizing for the number itself often stops being a useful indicator of what we actually want to achieve. The human mind just loves to win whatever game is being played. So if success is measured purely by quarterly earnings, managers might optimize for short-term profits, potentially harming long-term value. If success is defined solely by a lower number on the scale, people might resort to unhealthy crash diets that aren't sustainable. We chase the metric, not the meaning. Remember, the number is just feedback. It shouldn't become the sole objective.
That's a really common trap, isn't it? You see it everywhere. Focusing on working longer hours instead of doing more meaningful work. Chasing 10,000 steps on a Fitbit instead of focusing on overall health and well-being. Or teachers teaching to the test instead of fostering genuine learning and curiosity. We absolutely optimize for what we measure. And if we choose the wrong measurement, or if we let the measurement become the only thing we care about, we inevitably end up encouraging the wrong kind of behavior. We tend to overvalue things just because they're easy to count, and undervalue things that are harder to quantify, even if they're more important.
That sums it up perfectly. Just because you can measure something doesn't automatically mean it's the most important thing. And conversely, just because something is difficult to measure doesn't mean it's not important. So the key takeaway here is to keep habit tracking in its proper place. Yes, it can feel incredibly satisfying to record your progress and see those streaks grow, but the measurement itself isn't the only thing that matters. Sometimes, if a particular metric isn't motivating you or feels like it's leading you astray, shifting your focus can be really beneficial.
That brings up the idea of non-scale victories in weight loss, for example. If the number on the scale just isn't budging, it can be incredibly demotivating.
Totally demotivated.
But maybe you start noticing other changes. Your skin looks better, you have more energy throughout the day, maybe your clothes fit differently, or your sleep improves, or even, as Claire mentions, a boosted sex drive. These are all valid, real ways to track improvement. They provide additional signals of progress, especially when the primary metric, like the scale, might be stalled or moving slowly. If you're not feeling motivated by one number, maybe it's time to deliberately focus on a different measurement, one that does give you those crucial, motivating signals of progress.
Absolutely. Find the metrics that truly reflect the positive changes you're experiencing. Because no matter how you choose to measure your improvement, the fundamental benefit of tracking remains. It offers a simple, powerful way to make your habits more satisfying. Each measurement, each checkmark, each moved paperclip, it serves as a little piece of evidence that you're moving in the right direction. And it offers that little burst of immediate pleasure, that feeling of accomplishment for a job well done.
Wow, okay. We've covered a lot of ground today. We started with that really simple but effective paperclip strategy from Trent Diersmed. We dug into the power behind habit streaks and that never break the chain mentality and the absolutely crucial never miss twice rule for getting back on track quickly. And we also looked at the surprising pitfalls, tracking the wrong thing or letting the metric become the master instead of the servant, and how focusing on the right kinds of measurements can make such a difference.
Yeah, what really stands out, I think, is how these tools, habit tracking, visual cues, the recovery mindset, when you use them wisely, they really do transform how we approach consistency. It stops being this constant battle against willpower and becomes more about creating a system that gives you continuous feedback, keeps you motivated, and makes the invisible effort visible. It's about designing an environment where sticking with it feels almost inevitable.
So, thinking about the listeners, what does this all mean for you? Well, next time you're trying to build a new habit, or maybe trying to get back on track with an old one, just remember, the goal isn't perfection. It never was. It's really about consistent effort, building those small wins day by day, and having a smart strategy for recovery when you inevitably stumble. It's about honoring that commitment to yourself, even, maybe especially, when you fall short.
And maybe that leaves us with a final question for you to ponder. How can you consciously shift your focus, move from just doing the habit, ticking the box, to truly becoming the type of person who embodies that habit, especially on those days when you feel least like it? Because that's where the real compounding effect happens. That's the true power of consistency.